I mean, what are we even doing here? That this is where the discussion has gone to. And this is 100% on Democrats I mean, I shouldn't say that. Of course it started with Fauci lying. That's what it really started with.
Yeah,
Fauci lying. And then Trump and Republicans and then Democrats caving, right?
And I mean, for the whole, let's just start with the State of the Union. One person had a mask on at the State of the Union. Literally one fucking person. And they're all so old. Like that. I mean, 99% of the people in there are over 50, at least 99%.
One person in that whole, and I think he's one of the few that we haven't heard ever got COVID. Of course, because masks work. Yeah. It is just despicable what they have done. And so there was just this recent, and we probably should just read through the whole article, but we won't. But there was this Cochrane study that came out and said basically masks don't work. And that's what's being used by all the anti-maskers, the anti-vaxxers, the COVID minimizers. And again, it's just really fascinating to see that the people who are anti-vax, which again, we have talked about now for 2 years, understand why people might be skeptical, understand the hesitancy from different groups of people to get vaccinated, don't understand pretending COVID doesn't exist or that basic NPIs, non-pharmaceutical interventions that have been working for decades, all of a sudden don't work. And so what that shows you is that it's a completely bad faith attack on anybody who's trying to take COVID seriously.
Yeah, you should, if you are an anti-vaxxer and there's a rational, logical foundation for why you form that opinion, your views on masking tell me your whole motivation, because we can't have a talk if you don't believe in masks. I mean, masks fucking work, if you say, where's the evidence? All you have to do is look for the evidence. Like Google masks work and you'll get every fucking study that was ever put out there.
And look at the countries. Yeah. Go ahead.
But there's this recent study arguing that masks don't work. And it's really based on a lot of fallacies right from the start. I mean, for one, the people weren't asked to wear masks they were asked to wear masks in certain settings. So obviously you could get COVID in another setting outside of the mask.
Right.
That's one small thing. But
was this where it was? Okay. This is some of the things they claim that, oh God, RCTs. Somebody help me out here. RCTs of masks are invalid. What is my problem? My brain is not, the synapses are not receiving well today, are invalid because people don't wear them properly is utterly upside down. This isn't what invalidates RCTs. It's what invalidates the lab studies. If your intervention falls apart when subjected to its end user, that's what counts, not mannequin.
Randomized controlled tests.
Thank you. Oh my God. They say there is uncertainty about the effects of face masks. The low to moderate certainty of evidence means our confidence in the effect estimate is limited, and that the true effect may be different from the observed estimate of the effect. So this is the own author's conclusion, saying that the high risk of bias in the trials, the variation in the outcome measurement, and the relatively low adherence within the interventions during the studies hampers drawing firm conclusions. So in other words, they weren't able to have a firm control group and a firm group wearing masks in the appropriate way in settings that were the way more practical. And so from that, they're saying masks don't work.
So this is like this is another, I mean, I hate to say Jimmy Dore, but like all the people who are leftists who are against vaccinations, protections, whatever, they're using this as a moment to say we were right all the time, masks don't work. Right. And here's another example of the own guy who wrote the study. His own study doesn't make the conclusion these people are making.
Right.
And so if your goal is to get to the truth and challenge it with outsider voices, well, maybe you should look at his own conclusion to his own study for one.
Yeah.
And then you should go back and look at all these other studies where you took a headline and that study says, oh no, what you're claiming is not true. And that's
Right.
90% of the time with these articles that the people that are anti protections are claiming.
Right.
90% of the time you can look at within their own study to debunk what they are claiming.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, last week when we showed the difference between the deaths in Singapore and the deaths in the US, and mask wearing in Singapore and mask wearing in the US. And, I know that that it doesn't necessarily mean like that's one extraction that I'm cherry picking because I happen to think that masks work. But there's also remote working, there's cleaning the air, there is ventilation. There's so many different things that we could be doing. And yet none of the people who are anti-vax are pushing for any of those other protections, which again just shows that they are either intentionally or unintentionally really just working hard to benefit, wealthy CEOs and pushing everybody back to work in unsafe conditions.
I mean, who benefits from pretending COVID doesn't exist? Does that help socialists? Does that help leftists? Does that help the working class who are way more likely to be in these dangerous positions of getting exposed to COVID? No, it doesn't help them. It helps the CEO that wants you to drive to work. They don't want you to work from home because God forbid you work at home and you don't spend $10 on gas to get to work. The Koch brothers aren't going to like that. So what are the Koch brothers going to do? The Koch brothers are going to fund a lot of people to say a lot of bullshit online to minimize fucking COVID. And they have to minimize it on every level. So they have to say masks don't work because if masks work, offices have to, at least let you be alone in your office and close the door and wear a mask. They have to provide
remote
masks.
working. They don't want that because of the real
clean
estate.
The air. Costs $200. They don't want to spend $200 for an office to have clean air.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. The one of the other fallouts for this that I'm seeing is people, and there was somebody last week, I think, who, I don't know who she is, identifies as a socialist, says she wears masks all the time, got COVID sort of recently, and wrote a tweet. And she said something like, well, what are we supposed to do at this point where clearly our government isn't going to help us? Because of the way they have, I think, completely manufactured the narrative that people are over it, even when people clearly were not over it and were willing to do, to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to use protections, if it was, a high level of transmission. So then the CDC changes the map so they can say, oh, it's not that high of a level. And we have all of these people, pundits and Leanna Wens of the world, coming on to, corporate media saying how everybody should get back to work and live your best life, and the Andy Slavitz and everything. In the face of all of that, what are people like at a certain point? And so this woman got completely demolished and dragged by people who were, understandably concerned about COVID and the devastation it's causing, but kind of calling her out on her response or her question, which wasn't even, she said, I mask everywhere I go. And we got COVID. And like, how much longer do we not do anything, waiting for something to change when nothing's going to change?
It's a pretty fucked position to be in because really there is no apparent off ramp to people. And I really think what we need to do is inform the public more about long COVID and the realities of that, which, you'll notice in the State of the Union, they mention long COVID 0.0 times because it can't exist. If it exists, then all this whole narrative of, well, at least people aren't dying.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Which is the whole thing. It just shoots their argument to hell. But, we need to spread the word about long COVID so that people get more protections at work, because if it's accepted as a reality, people will not accept that they're going to expose their kids to this thing 3, 4, 5 times. And the reality is every time you're exposed to COVID, the more likely you are to get long COVID. So these dots will be connected if people actually get out and get the information on this stuff. So, I mean, but she's, I understand, people want to get back to normal and they don't see an out, but like returning to normal and exposing yourself to a possible disability isn't helping anyone. So it's
Right.
like it's dog eat dog, survive for yourself out there right now. Is what it is.
It really is. And, I think about it because, like, anytime anybody asks us to do anything, I'm always the one who has to say, I'm so sorry, we're still not going inside without a mask, so we can only meet you someplace outside. And usually those people will say, oh, yeah, yeah, me too, me too. And I was actually supposed to meet a dear old friend from college. Haven't seen her in like a decade. She was in town for work. And I said that to her. She was staying at a hotel. I was going to meet her at the hotel. And she said, yeah, yeah, no, me too. She hadn't gotten COVID at that point either, 3 years in. So why don't you come to my room and we'll go sit out on the balcony outside so that we can be outside. Well, she called me the day I was supposed to meet her, and she had gotten COVID because she came to LA for business, and she went, it's business dinners, and she sat inside with people and had dinner, and she got
flew
COVID.
over probably, right?
Flew, yeah, but I'm sure she wore a mask when she flew. I bet. But I kept thinking, and I'm so sorry that she got COVID. But I am sure would have gone to see her in her hotel room, and she had just told me that she hadn't gotten COVID for the previous 3 years. So in my mind, I probably would have been like, well, she's safe. And I might have let my guard down being in her hotel room and just been like without a mask. And then we would have gone out on the veranda, which I haven't done with any, right? And I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, how many more of those do you avoid? And like, I don't know. And I understand. And also, like, my kids are older, right? So like my older son, he already has had COVID because he went off to college, and of course he got COVID. And now everybody at college just has a cold all the time, and nobody tests. So they might all just be getting reinfected and having no idea. But for people who I know who have young kids, they go to school, and here our schools, your cafeteria is all outside, but in the rest of the country, even if your kid is really diligent and wears a mask inside, still has to have lunch indoors in the middle of winter with hundreds of kids. Like, I don't know. It is asking impossible. A lot of people.
It is impossible, but I think people just need to keep in mind you're looking out for your own health, and you have to do the best for yourself. And even though it's impossible to avoid it, like the less times you catch it, the more likely you are to get it the second time when there's another monoclonal antibody that actually works, because we're now out of the monoclonal antibody that treats it now doesn't work on these new strains. We're out of that. I mean, we got where's the graphics on this stuff, but
I know all of our stuff. We're kind of ping-ponging all over the place.
We're ranting more than we're
well, a crucial group of COVID drugs has stopped working because the variants are growing. They're learning and growing faster than we're dealing with them, because we are no longer doing anything about flattening the curve. Like all the stuff we talked about under Trump, wearing a mask, flatten the curve, so we don't stress hospitals, so we can give the vaccine time to, give everybody the vaccine, so then we don't get new variants. We've just thrown all of that to the wind. And so those let it rip it's actually against even if you're vaccine only, you're not helping that cause by not doing anything else to kind of move forward.
Yeah, I mean, you want to delay the mutations so that you can possibly come up with some sort of treatment, some sort of preventative, a new vaccine can come around that can work, I mean, you don't. And the problem is, like even in your scenario, like a lot of people say you did get exposed and got COVID for the first time, and your first time you're like, oh, this sucked, but I didn't die.
Right.
So
not that bad. It's just like a cold kind of.
Yeah. But if people knew the actual reality of the risk factor of getting that once, how long it screws up your immune system, getting it twice, what that does to you,
Well, and they're seeing the effect not only on vascular diseases, but also cancer. There was a study that just came out that it's causing cancer cells to reproduce more quickly. We just don't know what the long-term effects are. And, I know a lot of people, when you say something like that, they're like, well, you can't just live in fear all the time. I guess, I'm older, right? Like I'm married, I'm older. I don't care if I can't be inside to have a drink with somebody. I don't mind if I just have to sit in front of my TV for a while. I'm really lucky that I don't have to go work in unsafe conditions. So from my like very privileged standpoint, I can kind of hang out and do this for longer. But I understand why like young people who have lost, a significant chunk of their lives might feel, as I think many of us felt when we were in our teens and early 20s, kind of immortal. And
Oh, it would be hard to be 18-year-old me during this.
yeah,
It would be. And we all acknowledge that. I mean, I don't think just
it's just
because we're
what,
pushing for the response that's better for people's health doesn't mean, we don't understand.
yeah. It's just hard because I'm feeling pushback now from a group of people I hadn't felt it from before. And I'm
Yeah.
not totally sure how to respond to that other than suck it up and just keep wearing a mask, which is basically my response. But I don't know that that's like helping build community or convince anybody of
No,
anything.
I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, like my cancer friend who I take care of once in a while, I got to remind her to put a mask on when we go in the store. I'm like, really? I got to remind you to put a mask on? And I get it. She's so far gone, down the road of,
right.
she can, if she doesn't want to wear a mask, she doesn't want to wear a mask. I mean, that's fine,
Yeah.
But I mean, like, family gathering, I'm like, hey, what are we doing? Who's coming over here? I have to clear it because I've shown up and there's like people that I don't know, just chilling with everybody, and I don't know what their life's about, and they're at a birthday party that
Remember
I
the
had to go to
bubble?
because it's my family, like,
Right.
But there's no who is the voice of reason educating these people that this stuff is still a risk. I mean, that we're getting the State of the Union that things aren't so bad anymore. Like, that's it. Like,
It's just
there's
it's
no
like the flu.
So I got to be
endemic.
when I have to be the adult in the room, we are really fucked.
We are fucked.
That's really important. And I constantly have to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's been a real the idea that Biden and that administration was going to come in and do something to deal with COVID in a more mature way. I mean, look at that graph, right? There is that vertical line in the middle there is the deaths under Trump when we had just started getting a vaccine. I mean, barely. Like, didn't the vaccine come out right after he was elected, I think?
I feel like that line there is probably the vaccine line. What are we looking at?
No, I think that's when Biden. I think that's when Biden.
No, you're right.
Yeah. I like hearing that. You can embroider that on a pillow and send it my way. Yeah. So here's Biden coming in, the Believe Science administration. Now we have vaccines, which, by the way, I mean, so awful to admit, but like that was Operation Warp Speed. Those vaccines came because of Trump funneling billions of dollars into big pharma to help get those going. I mean, we all paid into it, but like, people kind of forget that there was a huge pushback and distrust of the vaccines initially because it was under Trump that we were going to get these vaccines that were going to cure everybody.
Right.
So Biden comes in, he has the vaccines, he's supposed to get them out, get shots in the arms to everybody. And slowly faith in the vaccines have deteriorated for a number of reasons that well warranted, but okay. But then he gives up on every other protection and just lets it rip. So here we are at 1.2 million deaths, and all they can say is we're overcounting deaths, which is a lie anyway, because by every estimation from data analysts, we're actually probably undercounting deaths, and nobody tests anymore. And if you do test, it's a home test, and so you're not reporting it. So that's severely undercounted as well. I do want to just say that until I think May, several insurances will give you 8 COVID tests for free a month per person per household. So you have to do it through your insurance, but like I can go into my Walgreens and I get 8 tests for free. So
that's not nothing. So people should do
nothing.
that.
Yeah. And that way, if you are having something with friends or something and you have to I know it doesn't actually catch everything, but at least it's something.
Yeah. Well, it's February and we got 20,000 COVID deaths this year. So the idea that we should stop worrying about this is
it's not even mid-February. We're 6 weeks into this year.
And just imagine say you think I'm some quack and I'm a pussy and I'm a cuck, or I'm a big pharma bro, or whatever.
Pfizer Pat.
Pfizer Pat. Okay, so just pretend long COVID is real. Just accept that one thing. Long COVID is real. Are you good with like 2 million people having a disease that we don't know how to treat yet? And most of these, I mean, a lot of these people are kids who are going to be in school getting it every 4 months. They get COVID, or every 6 months they get COVID. Twice a year they get COVID, and
Well,
we
that's why
know it causes
they
long
have their
COVID,
people
brain
writing in the
damage.
New Atlantic and everything, or Atlantic, that long COVID is just part of your imagination. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
right
are
now
you
there's no, yeah.
well? So are you okay with that? Like, if you're pushing this anti-mask stuff and it turns out long COVID is real, which is fucking real. It's not. This is not an opinion. I mean, they have markers. They know that you can test and see that people have
Right.
long COVID effects. This is not some conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is the shit that masks don't work, that's spread by Alex Jones and Robert Malone and all the fucking idiots that
Yeah.
all you need is a fucking med school student to debunk. But those are your heroes over there, people. So what about all these people with long COVID? Fuck them. That's your socialist left. That's the leftists
Yeah.
that we're supposed to work with.
Well, because now they're saying, well, first of all, there was already that sort of eugenicist idea of like, well, those are people with comorbidities or pre-existing conditions, which
Oh, they're old.
They're old, or even just, they're overweight. They have comorbidities,
But
pre-existing
if you had
conditions.
COVID once,
Yeah, exactly.
you're
And that's
part
like,
of that group.
yeah,
Just fucking let them die.
yeah. Now you are somebody with a precondition. I know. So I don't know. It's again, like I could do this. I feel like Captain America. I could do this all day. I'm fine staying home. I love not going out. I am an antisocial person. But like I get why there are people who are feeling, and by the way, I remember like even at the very beginning when people were like, why is anybody, like even the liberals who now are all out in bars, but like back then they're like, why are people out in bars? It's disgusting. And they were always like, in Florida. So it was always like Florida man out in bars, super spreader event.
Yeah, the crazy. And then here we have the Senate. I mean,
Yeah. But like even then it was like,
state.
but those people are being forced to work in completely unsafe conditions. And yeah, now they want to drink after work. But like there's never any understanding of what we're asking of people with no plan in like that. We have set out no plan on how we're going to fix this. We're just going to cull the herd. That's what we're doing. We're culling the herd.
And we're hoping science. I mean, they're hoping science comes up with something before 20 million people have long COVID. Oh wait, we have 20. We already have how many million people have long COVID now? What's the number?
Like 28 million or something in our country.
I think it's 23 million Americans have long COVID. 23 million.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I know we have so much more we could talk about with COVID, but I feel like we've depressed people enough, right? Is there anything like that's new? COVID deaths are down by 90%. I don't even know. I mean, I think you have to really be comparing that to a very specific time because we haven't been below 500 a day for a while. I mean, the fact that we're at 20,000 right now and we're 8 days, what's that, 30, 39, 40 days into this year and we're at 20,000, 500 a day. So I mean, look how fast
it's kind of crazy. The math probably doesn't add up. But
no, it does. I
just
did it.
Don't
I just divided
save the math for the men, Lila. God.
Wait, I can't get rid of this.
I gotta say something sexist every show. Well, because I want to keep it up for a second. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Harvard study reported 40. It's hard for me to keep it up, Lila. I need big.
That
pharma.
Is actually another effect. Sorry, but
big
that's another effect they're finding
keep it up.
of COVID is erectile dysfunction. Just putting it out there. And lower sperm count.
COVID. I mask, ladies. I don't.
No. It's lower sperm count and ED. All right. So yeah.
Anyway, a Harvard study reported 40% of nurses developed long COVID out of 1,900. So they studied 1,900 people. 44% of nurses got long COVID. Do you think this is a sustainable model that we have where frontline workers just get COVID over and over and then get long COVID? I mean, financially, it's not sustainable.
No.
for
I mean,
one.
we're
I mean,
destroying
what
our
about
hospitals. Yeah.
we have hospitals that don't require masks
Oh my God. Yeah.
with COVID.
Lots of medical workers and at like retirement homes and assisted living where the workers don't have to wear masks. It's unbelievable. And even as Ja, I can't remember his first name, who's the head of the
Yeah.
COVID response for Asha Ja, I think, for Biden, even as he's applauding Biden and everything he's done, he's talking about how our hospital system, our healthcare system is not going to be able to handle long COVID in the future. And then this is, I know this is
Ashish
so
Ja.
gross. Ashish, yeah, I called him Asha. Why Ashish
Yeah.
Ja? He's hopeful that private insurance companies will continue to cover COVID-19 tests and extend what the Center for Medicare for what is man? Because the emergency is gone. You're right. So he's hoping. Pin all your hopes to that the insurance companies will do the right thing. Just like Pfizer said that they weren't going to increase the cost of the vaccine. Just hope.
And they said it cost Pfizer like was under $30 to make the vaccine per shot, which is crazy. It probably cost them like $10
Yeah.
max. But they want to charge what 300 plus or something. It's ridiculous.
It's like 400% increase. Yeah.
And we funded a lot of that research.
It's taxpayer research, 100%.
There's no benefit. This is capitalism. I mean, this is really with the argument. This is why they have to let this shit go.
And yes, this is exactly how they're going to do with climate change. They have their bunkers. They have their, Paxlovid or whatever the hell, Paxlovid. So they think they're fine.
I don't know if you noticed, but have you seen the new COVID ads? Excuse me, I think pink is one of them. It's people that are at high risk for COVID. It's a federal ad.
Yes.
That high
sponsored
risk
by Pfizer.
No, it's you're right. It's a Pfizer ad.
Yeah.
Get a plan.
Get a plan.
So we don't have the government saying do X or Y. They're like, go to our website if you're at risk for COVID and get a plan.
And what plan is that? And especially for the millions of people who are uninsured or underinsured, what is the plan?
Look at this. Is the plan?
For those 50 and older or living with a chronic condition like heart disease or diabetes, COVID could be deadly, but an updated COVID vaccine will help keep you protected from COVID's worst outcomes. Update yourself and be ready to fight back. You beat COVID once, be ready for a rematch. So they're just like baking into the system. You're going to get it again and again. Figure it out. Get back to work. Have a plan.
And that same message, if that is your message, it should at least include do the best to protect yourself by wearing a mask and encourage others around you to wear a mask. Like put that in there as an addendum to their other bullshit vax only system. But like, capitalism needs to make sure that masks don't work. Masks can't work for them because if masks work, then long COVID is real. Like it all has to just go away is what they want. It just has to be the most at-risk people. Because people, who cares about the disabled and, but once that disabled group is, say we have a test model in 2 years and we have fucking 2 million kids with long COVID who suddenly develop brain aneurysms or something like we don't know where this thing goes. Yeah. That's the other piece. We know what happens now, but we don't know what 5 years of this in your body does to you.
Right. Yeah. I don't know who's out there fighting for it. I mean, I was really happy to see, my Bernie, who I've been so disappointed with on so many things, wearing a mask. But I'll tell you, I don't hear him talking about COVID. It'd be really nice for him to talk about COVID with his good friend Joe and to criticize the White House response to COVID or their plan or whatever. I mean, where are those voices?
For none of the squad, I mean, Bernie included, to be calling out, to ever call out and ever criticize Biden's COVID policy is the most disappointing thing I've seen from them, period.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be a perfect moment to fight for Medicare for all.
Yep.
But you're acting like our response is fine. Like
Yep.
this is just fine. I mean,
200,000 deaths a year is just going to be what we're all going to have to get used to right now. And they're going to say it's endemic, which is not what endemicity is. That's not the proper use of it. It is not endemic. It is growing and changing,
yeah.
which is exactly not what it means to be endemic. So, yeah.